Today, should you use hardware effects with your DAW or just do it all in the box? What I'm talking about here is looping hardware effects into a DAW so they appear as an effect that you can select in your DAW just like you select all your other DAW plugins. Interesting story. A guitar player I ran into at a local music store gave me a tour of his studio. He asked me what effects I run, and I think he was really asking me about guitar effects. I'm not much of a guitar player, so I really don't have a lot of guitar effects, like pedals. I told him that I do a lot of stuff, mostly in the box, but I also run some looped-in hardware effects. He shook his head and gave me the, "Dude, it all sounds the same" speech, so just do it all in the box, he said. I looked at his chain of hardware guitar effects pedals that he had immaculately arranged on the floor, and then looked back at him. I said, you know, there are a whole bunch of in-the-box guitar effects. I know that Waves, for example, has GTR, and you can set up chains of discrete effects and save the settings. He said, "That's different, dude. I have to get my tone." So I cocked my head and raised my eyebrows, and he went into a 20-minute diatribe about how guitar tone is a certain type of sound, whereas all hardware effects sound the same, even though that's exactly what he was using. Those guitar pedals are hardware effects. I've heard similar arguments from folks about hardware effects that play other instruments, yet they absolutely swear that using a high-quality hardware preamp and/or compressor is a must. I agree about using a high-quality hardware preamp and a compressor, but in the same breath, they'll tell you that while a high-quality preamp is a must because it affects the quality and character of the sound, other external hardware like multi-effects processors don't do that. Here I disagree. I believe that I can make a good argument that in-the-box effects don't change the character of the sound source appreciably, or at all, other than is intended based on what effect is active. It's an old digital process. Whereas going through an analog audio process, even if it's only the conversion from A to D and back again, does add something to the character of the sound in an appreciable way. Also, despite computers getting more powerful and in-the-box effects algorithms getting more complex for reverb, they still have a long way to go to catch up with dedicated hardware. Even hardware from the 80s and 90s. Could a manufacturer make an in-the-box effect that was as powerful as a dedicated hardware effects processor, say for reverb? I think they probably could, but it would eat up all of your CPU power, and you still need to have playback of the sequence, MIDI, and sample libraries playing, etc. We're going to get there, and then hardware effects are going to be an even harder sell than they already are. But for the same reason some folks will always use external hardware preamps, some will always want to use hardware effects, especially for critical analog sources. If you think about that a little deeper, many respected professionals use a lot of external hardware. It's not even the latest technology. It's from 30, 40, even 50 years ago. For some of these devices, the specs are horrendously bad by modern day standards. You've probably seen it in online videos and you know exactly what I'm talking about here. You may even wish you owned some of this gear. But those kinds of items are often rare and very expensive. Perhaps for a reason. Let's look at the benefits as I see them. The hardware benefits are that they just sound better to me. Maybe that's subjective, but I truly believe it. And a lot of what I'm talking about here is subjective. That's just the way it is with sound. The reverbs are denser, the delays sound warmer and thicker. And there is something about that A to D conversion that just seems to add something. I also like that I can grab a physical knob and twist it. It's a bigger selling point than you might imagine. Here are the software pros. 100% recallability. You load the project and it's there, just as you left it. No physical looping of cables. It's all routed in the box. You gotta love that, and I do. Unlimited instantiations. You may have purchased just one of that really expensive plug-in effect, say reverb, but if you want, you can put it on every channel. There are other pros for both, but these are the main ones. As far as the cons go, essentially pros for one or cons for the other, but a few items bear mentioning. For hardware, setting up the physical cable loops and software routings can be trivial or frustrating as heck, depending on your tech savviness and how well you know your DAW, audio interface, and hardware effects processor. For software, your DAW may change something radical that means your in-the-box plug-in effects may not work with it anymore. This happened to me when Cubase moved from 32-bit to 64-bit plugins. It happened to other people too. I always say that you should do what works for you. I'm not trying to talk you into anything. I never am. I'm simply informing you of the possibilities. So if you haven't tried it, maybe you should. For me, I use a combination of both. Nothing is carved in stone. But for examples, for EQ, in the box. For overall reverb on stereo masters, hardware effects. Delay, either. Pop drums, hardware. Orchestral sections, in the box. Often just using the mic sources from the spaces they were recorded in, but also using the instrument's built-in reverb or other plugins I have when needed. Guitar, dramatic pause, either, but for aficionados, I understand. You have to get your tone, dude. Really, I'm not mocking you here, and I mean that sincerely. I know it's a big deal for guitar. I play a little guitar, and it is a big deal. Here's something to consider. A few of the hardware effects I own, I purchased used 5 years ago, and they have doubled in price. I'm wondering why that is. Could it be that, like me, folks are starting to see the real value in them for their productions? Like many people, I traded out some of my analog synths back in the 80s, and how much would it cost me to repurchase those synths now? More than the original retail price in some cases, and in some cases maybe even multiples of the retail price that I paid for them. I'm always interested in what other people are doing, so feel free to comment. Is it snake oil, or do external hardware effects still have value? Hopefully I haven't wasted your time. Take care. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back in another video soon.